Welcome to the Stephen Mansfield Podcast.
Welcome to the Stephen Mansfield Podcast. Great to have you with me. I want to talk about something in this podcast which illustrates a principle that I have also been talking about for a long time. I want to talk to you about global warming, but I want to talk to you about that by way of saying that a lack of moderation, that overheated agendas are failing us on many fronts in our American politics and in our Western world, but they are certainly failing us when it comes to this issue of global warming. So let's dive in. We know recently that the U.S. government issued a report saying that global warming is severe and that it is going to affect us economically very soon if it's not already. We're also seeing unbelievable things happening just in the forces of nature: storms, blizzards, fires, droughts, just unbelievable heat in some parts of the world. There's no question that something's happening, okay? Whenever this comes up, whenever this is discussed, you immediately have the so-called experts saying that certain things need to happen. For example, this morning when I turned on the television, I was watching CBS Morning, and an expert came on and said, these are the things that are happening, and he listed all the things that I've just been talking about. And then he said, and we can bring all these things to an end. We can stop all these things by doing certain things because we know that these natural conditions are man-made. Now, obviously, the other side politically, the other side in this debate believes that while there may be some global warming happening, that it's not man-made and that the experts are constantly trying to push us towards some sort of new political system. And that's why Donald Trump has pulled us out of Paris Accords, has pulled us out of other kind of agreements, and has actually said that global warming is a hoax. So you have overheated agendas. You have people who go far beyond what the science actually proves. You have people who react to those overheated agendas. And frankly, we're not doing any of the things that we need to be doing. So let's slow it down just a little bit and let's talk about what's true. First of all, there is a form of global warming happening. We just need to settle in and relax and stop calling it a hoax and stop questioning the basic science. Anybody with eyes can tell that the polar ice caps are shrinking. Anybody with eyes can tell that we're dealing with an upheaval of nature, so to speak. I don't believe that the earth is Gaia, and she's ticked off at us or anything like that. I simply believe there are certain things happening in the earth, okay? And they relate to global warming. So let's just resolve it once and for all. Global warming is happening. But number two, we also need to know that different trends and phases of global warming have happened throughout history. We're not near as warm in the earth. The temperatures are not nearly as high as they have been earlier in history. This has been proven. This is without question. And part of the problem is that both the average guy on the street and scientists rarely approach their work or their thinking about this subject historically. What's happened in history? We've had periods like this. We've had periods of constriction of ice caps. We've had periods of flooding. We've had periods of unbelievable fires and plague and droughts and things. We've had whole nations beset with drought for years and years and years. So these things are not necessarily new. And so we need to understand that while global warming is happening, it may be part of a cycle that takes place within nature. Number three, there is a theory about how man may be contributing to this, but there has been no firm science as of yet. And please don't hear me as a doubter or a global warming denier. I'm not. But there's no firm evidence as yet that anything from cow flatulence to car emissions by itself is producing global warming. Now, again, I believe global warming is happening, and I believe that we've got to respond and prepare for it. What I do not necessarily believe is that man has produced this situation alone. He might have exacerbated it. There might be something related to chemical emissions making global warming worse. But for the most part, we don't have evidence, as far as I know, as far as I read, as far as experts that I pay attention to say, they certainly believe global warming is taking place. They are not convinced that it is exclusively a man-made thing. Therefore, when scientists rush ahead with socialist agendas, rush ahead with statist solutions, rush ahead and essentially call for a new political order based on global warming, of course, it looks like they are driven by agendas. They are unable to be objective in their science, and therefore we can't hear them. And therefore we can't benefit from their wisdom. Everybody needs to calm down a bit. There is no question that global warming is taking place, and there's no question that it's going to affect us. That's where our eyes need to be. In the meantime, the scientists need to continue to try to confirm that it's man-made. I'm of the opinion, and I'm no expert. Please understand, I have no expertise in this area. I'm just simply reading a great deal about this, and I'll tell you that at least half the scientists working in this area are unconvinced that it's man-made. But I think at least we've come to the point where we can say global warming is happening. There are floods. There are worse storms. There are worse droughts. Certainly the polar ice caps are shrinking. There are things happening on the earth. And this has happened in the past, and it's happened more severely than it's happening now. But now we have the ability to prepare. And that's what I want to bring us to, that we recognize that there are going to be changes in industries, that things may not be as consistent as they have been. The experts are saying, for example, that middle America and the farm region is going to be dramatically impacted. Therefore, we need to look at new ways of growing food. We need to look at the fact that food prices will probably rise. We need to talk about our diets and how we're growing food. That's where productive discussion should happen. So I'm often on this podcast saying that some moderation, that's some reflectiveness, that's some intelligent consideration of the facts would help us. And if we would just step down from our raging agendas and our raging need to defeat the other side, we actually could be wise in our generation and save a lot of lives. I think if we don't prepare for global warming, people will die. I think that industries will be destroyed. I think that there may be suffering. I'm not sure that man has exclusively created global warming, but it's definitely happening in our lifetime. And in the next decades, we are likely to see, if present trends continue, we are likely to see some devastation from it. So we should prepare. How? By doing what I've described. And again, I have nothing to sell and I am no expert. Please don't misunderstand. I have no driving agenda. But we should look at what industries, what services are going to be interrupted, what industries are going to be damaged by global warming, and begin to prepare accordingly. And in fact, I think that's something that you can do on an individual basis. What are you dependent upon that may be interrupted? Where do you live that may be damaged? What industries are you dependent on for your livelihood that may be affected? Are you in a coastal region? What might go into upheaval in the coming years? Read a little bit, avoid the extreme analysis, avoid the call for a new political order globally, and dictators to help resolve this issue, and ask yourself what can happen. The likelihood is that government is not going to make that big a difference. It should, but it's not likely to. So how can you prepare at an individual level? There's a lot of screaming, there's a lot of carrying on, there are a lot of accusations, and there's a lot of exaggeration. But what can we do sanely and calmly to recognize that just like people in previous periods of history, we are going to be living through global warming, a season of global warming, and it is going to affect industries, and it is going to affect food, and it is going to affect the work that we do, and it is going to make the world, perhaps for a season, a little less safe. So how can we prepare? Let's be sane. Let's be rational. And for those of you who listen to this podcast who are political leaders, let's try to call all the factions into some kind of harmony. Fundamentally, people believe in global warming and people want to prepare for it. In fact, a recent survey showed that global warming is one of the top things on the minds of voters in the Western world. Okay, let's answer it. But let's do so sanely. Let's stop being extreme. Let's stop using global warming as fuel for the fires we want to set, destroying governments, destroying nations, going with some kind of a centralized world order and so on. And let's get real and begin to alleviate the human suffering that is very likely to result from global warming.
Stephen Mansfield is a New York Times best-selling author, a popular speaker, and a frequent faith and culture commentator on Fox and CNN. His groundbreaking books on faith and society include The Faith of George W. Bush, The Search for God in Guinness, Mansfield's Book of Manly Men, and Lincoln's Battle with God. Learn more at stephenmansfield.tv.